Have you ever wondered how a small group of colonies rebelled against the world's most powerful empire to form a new nation? The story of America is one of revolution, expansion, conflict, and triumph. Let's take a whirlwind journey through its history. 1. Early America and colonization, 1607 to 1776. The story begins in the early 1600s, when English settlers established the first permanent colony at Jamestown, Virginia, in 1607. Over the next century, the 13 colonies began to grow along the eastern seaboard, each with distinct identities, but united by their desire for economic opportunity, religious freedom, and self-rule. Life in the colonies was a blend of agriculture, trade, and early industry. However, British rule became increasingly oppressive, with taxes and laws like the Stamp Act, 1765, and the Intolerable Acts, 1774, causing discontent. The seeds of revolution were planted. 2. The American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. In 1775, fighting broke out between British troops and colonial militias at Lexington and Concord. The colonists, inspired by Enlightenment ideas of liberty and democracy, declared their independence in 1776 with the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The war that followed pitted the colonies against the might of Britain. Under General George Washington, the Continental Army fought a long, grueling war, eventually winning key victories at Saratoga, 1777, and with French assistance at Yorktown, 1781. The Treaty of Paris, 1783, officially recognized American independence. 3. Building a new nation, 1783 to 1812. After the Revolution, America faced the challenge of creating a stable government. The Articles of Confederation, which governed the new nation, proved ineffective, leading to the drafting of the U.S. Constitution in 1787, which established a federal system of government. George Washington became the first president, and the Bill of Rights was ratified in 1791, guaranteeing individual freedoms. The nation began to expand westward, with the Louisiana Purchase in 1803 doubling the size of the U.S. But tensions grew with Britain, especially over trade, which led to the War of 1812. 4. The Age of Expansion and the Civil War, 1812 to 1865. In the early 1800s, America's borders expanded rapidly. The westward movement was fueled by the belief in manifest destiny, the idea that Americans were destined to spread across the continent. This led to the forced removal of Native American tribes, including the infamous Trail of Tears. Meanwhile, tensions between the North and South grew over the issues of slavery and states' rights. The 1840s and 50s saw the rise of the abolitionist movement in the North and a growing dependence on slavery in the South. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, who opposed the spread of slavery, led to the secession of Southern states, triggering the Civil War, 1861 to 1865. The war ended in 1865 with the defeat of the Confederacy, and slavery was abolished with the 13th Amendment. The Reconstruction era followed, trying to rebuild the South and integrate formerly enslaved people into society, though racial tensions would continue to simmer. 5. Industrialization and world power, 1865 to 1914. The late 19th century was a time of rapid industrialization. Railroads, factories, and new technologies transformed the economy. Cities grew, and millions of immigrants poured in, fueling the workforce. The Gilded Age, marked by great wealth for some and extreme poverty for others, gave rise to labor movements and calls for reform. America also began to emerge as a world power. The Spanish-American War, 1898, was a turning point, with the U.S. taking control of territories like Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. The construction of the Panama Canal, 1914, symbolized the country's growing influence in global trade. 6. World Wars and the Great Depression, 1914 to 1945. World War I, 1914 to 1918, marked America's debut as a global military power. Though initially neutral, the U.S. entered the war in 1917, tipping the balance in favor of the Allies. The Treaty of Versailles, 1919, officially ended the war, but it also sowed the seeds for a future conflict. The 1920s brought the Roaring Twenties, a time of economic prosperity and cultural change. However, the 1930s brought the Great Depression, a devastating economic collapse that affected millions. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs were designed to provide relief and recovery. World War II, 1939 to 1945, saw America's emergence as the world's most powerful nation. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the U.S. joined the Allies and played a crucial role in defeating Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. The war also brought the U.S. into the Cold War with the Soviet Union. 7. The Cold War era, 1945 to 1991. After World War II, the U.S. and the Soviet Union became superpower rivals in a struggle for global influence, known as the Cold War. This was a period of tension, espionage, and proxy wars, like the Korean War, 1950 to 1953, and the Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975. The arms race, including the development of nuclear weapons, brought the world to the brink of war. At home, the Civil Rights Movement, 1950s and 1960s, fought for racial equality, culminating in landmark victories like the Civil Rights Act, 1964, and the Voting Rights Act, 1965. The Cold War ended in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union, marking the United States as the sole global superpower. 8. The modern era. The end of the Cold War ushered in a new era of global economic integration and technological advancement. The 1990s were marked by economic growth, the rise of the internet, and the spread of democracy around the world. However, the 21st century brought new challenges. The September 11, 2001, attacks by al-Qaeda on U.S. soil sparked the War on Terror, leading to military interventions in Afghanistan and Iraq. The 2008 financial crisis caused a global recession, and the country has since faced divisions over political, racial, and economic issues. America's role in the world has shifted in the face of rising global powers like China. Yet, it continues to be a leading force in global politics, technology, and culture.